Hey everyone, this is Mike. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Samurai and Summoner. Now these changes that they brought in the balance update were not nearly as gigantic as the ones for Ninja, so I thought I can just take both of these together for one video, as the changes are a lot more smaller changes, and I thought that it was still worth taking a look at for people that have played Samurai or Summoner before, but kind of put them towards the side because they felt clunky or they were a little bit frustrated with how some skills worked. So let's start by talking about Samurai. Now, the main change in Samurai is that now their level 80 skill Shoha will actually have a normal place in your rotation. Before, you could only really use Shoha when you were able to meditate, and meditating during the fight was pretty much up to RNG because you had to be lucky that you are meditated on a server tick, because that's how you could get meditate stacks. Outside of that, meditating would pretty much only be something that you would do during downtime. So if a fight like, for example, E2 Savage, who has pretty much no downtime, you would basically not get meditate stacks if you didn't get lucky with the server ticks. Now, the way they handle it now is meditating will still give you stacks, but meditate has become a GCD instead of an off GCD. So meditating is something that you'll only be doing when there's actual downtime and not just in the middle of the fight. But on the other hand, now your AI Jutsus and your Tsubame Gaishi will also grant you a stack of meditate. To also counteract this, Shoha can now only be used when you have 3 stacks of meditate. It can also not generate more than 3 stacks. So once you have your 3 stacks, make sure you use your Shoha, because if you're going to be using something like meditate, Tsubame Gaishi, Iaijutsu, you're basically going to overcap on those meditate stacks. Now this means that Shoha is something that you're going to be using quite frequently. It is still a pretty potent off GCD, it still looks amazing, the animation is probably one of my favorite animations from Samurai. And it's just a really nice addition, because before your level 80 skill was something that you would barely have access to, or maybe lose once or twice in a fight because there is a little bit of downtime. But right now it's actually a skill that you're going to be using like once, twice a minute, depending on how many times you have like your Iaijutsu up and whatever. I don't know the exact math. But it's something that you're going to be using quite a lot more. Now, of course, to counteract the fact that you now have a very high potency of GCD, they did tweak the potencies on some of your other abilities, decreasing them, to be said. So you're going to be doing a little bit less damage with your normal skills, but then on the other hand, you do have your Shoha, which is going to be doing a lot more damage. So in general, it is a buff to Samurai's personal DPS, which was necessary because Monk Dragoon was way too strong. We also saw that Dragoon was getting some potency buffs as well in this patch, so Samurai now having a little bit more personal DPS than Dragoon is very nice to see. So Samurai looks really cool. We're finally having usages of that Shoha skill as well, so overall I think it is a very good change. Now moving over to Summoner. Summoner saw quite a few changes when it comes to potencies and the way some skills work, like for example Tri-Disaster lost its Ruination effect, but then got the effect added that Tri-Disaster now does front up damage as well, kind of to counteract the fact that Ruination is gone. And then your Eggy Assault skills and potencies change quite a lot as well. Now, the biggest change that I want to talk about is these 2 Eggy Assaults. Prior to this patch, the Eggy Assault 1 and 2 were off GCDs, and the problem with Summoner was that it was very immobile, because using Ruin 2 over something like Ruin 3 would be a DPS loss, of course, because it's less potency. But you need to use Ruin 2 a little bit too much, because you had so many off GCDs to weave. You had your 2 Eggy Assaults, which is basically 4 actions per minute. Then you also had your Energy Drain and your 2 Aether Flow stacks. And then you still had like your Bahamut and such like that, which you also don't have during your Dreadworm trance. So there was basically a lot of off-global cooldowning going on when you didn't really have that many weaving options, so to speak. Now, of course, back then your Eggy Assaults would give you Ruin 4 stacks when you use them, so you could use that to off-global, but it would make it so that optimizing Ruin 4 usages was incredibly important for not only like having all of your off-global cooldown weaving there, but also for movement. Now, to change this, they made it so that your 2 Eggy Assaults are now GCDs. So it makes it so that your Eggy Assault actions now also deal a lot more damage to make up for the fact that they are now on the GCD instead of on the off GCD. The reason why this is incredibly good is because right now you basically have 4 actions per minute extra to use for not only weaving but also for movement, and they still generate those Ruin 4 stacks. So every time that you, and they're also instant, so like your Eggy Assaults, you can use 4 of them per minute, you can use them to weave, you can use them to move, and then they will still grant you those Ruin 4 stacks, which you can then also use to weave and to move around. So in some fights when there's very little movement, I find myself just having leftover Ruin 4 stacks because I've used my Eggy Assaults to weave stuff, and then maybe like I used 1 or 2 like Ruin 4 stacks to move, or to do some other stuff, and then I'm just left over with extra Ruin 4s, which feels incredibly good because then you can just spend them to deal damage instead of keep a hold of them because you're like, well, I'll need to keep these for weaving or for movement. So right now, Summoner feels incredibly good. I'm still a little bit about how like their dot application works and stuff, but that's probably because I just haven't put as much time into Summoner as I did back in Stormblood. But right now I have to say, it feels so much better. Like, you don't feel like a turret anymore. They also fixed some stuff with their 2 big summons, Bahamut and Phoenix, so that's really good to see as well. But overall, I just have to say, it feels so much better, both Samurai, both Summoner as well. And if you've played them before and you kind of put them to the side, definitely recommend you take a look at them again, because both of them feel incredibly good to play now. So, with all of that being said, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.